All right, the next thing that you do after you've gone through a pre-approval stage and you've talked about what it is that you look for is you go out searching for houses. You kind of make an offer. And this is where a lot of relationships get messed up. And in fact, the person who taught me this is my wife. A lot of times within a context of a relationship, you have this, well, do you like her? Yeah, I like her. Well, does she know you like her? I don't know. I think she knows. And so there's this awkward starting phase that gets a little complicated. And so here's what you need to do to start every relationship. And I'm going to let Lauren talk about this.
Well, you have to have the DTR, right? The determine the relationship talk. And I remember Ben and I were hanging out a little bit. This was when we were in college. And the one day he says, hey, I'll pick you up tomorrow kind of early. And we were not officially dating at this point. We were just friends. We hung out a few times, not official. And he drove me to his parents' house, which was 2 hours away, all right? So we're in the car and I'm like, holy cow, I think I trust this guy, but this is kind of creepy. I don't know where we're going. And so he invites me to meet his family, and I'm just thinking, okay.
I get down on one knee and I go, will you marry me? No.
But it was a little weird. Luckily, he had a great family. Everything went great that day. But on the way home in the car, I said, okay, so what's going on? What are we? What's this all about? How do you feel about me? And we had to have the DTR in the talk. And so don't be afraid to have the DTR. Now, I have a guilty confession. I found myself watching The Bachelor last week, okay, which I watched years and years ago and swore I was going to stop watching, and then I just happened to watch it this past week, and it's like a car crash. You start watching and you can't turn it off. So I was watching it, and if you ever watch that, you know, obviously for a multitude, layers of reasons, not a great way to have a relationship, you know, obviously. But the DTRs in that show, not great. Not like that, okay? More of a, okay, listen, let's just cut to the chase. I think that I like you. I think I'm interested in having a relationship with you. What do you think about that? And just taking it from there. So is that... What other thoughts do you have on that?
I think that the thing that's really important in the DTR too is that's where you lay out the boundaries and the path that you're going to take. And a lot of times the DTR is I held her hand, we kissed, and you never talk about what's going to happen. The boundaries that you want. You never make that painfully clear at the beginning, and then all of a sudden 3 months down the road you're in a relationship because it just kind of happened, and you kissed on the front porch, and now you're going places physically that you never addressed. You don't know what page that you're on, and you never had the chance to say, where are we at with this? Why are we doing this? How are we going to handle? How late is too late? Well, you know, for us, it was, you know, we never wanted to be anywhere past 11 o'clock where there weren't other people at the same house. That was an important thing that we had to determine right out of the gate. Why? Because we didn't want our emotions to get carried away with us. And so that's really important that you do that in that initial phase and be clear about all of that stuff. And if the person of the opposite sex that you're interested in blows it off, well, then drop it and go somewhere else because you're wasting your time. If they don't care about that the way that you do, then clearly they don't understand what it means to be in a healthy relationship. The next list, these are a list of questions. And dating is fun, but it's meant to be a little bit of an inspection process. And so I'm just going to ask these, and you need to be thinking about them, not just, oh, we have fun together. You can have fun with a dog and a frisbee at the park, okay? You can have fun lots of different ways. Dating is unique. Do we want it to be fun? Absolutely. But a quick story, we found a house for sale on Dunham, and from the outside, it looked great. We made an offer. We were all but moved in. The house was empty, and we brought an inspector in to look at the house. And you know what we found? Termites had chewed out the foundation of the house. Had we moved into that place, it would have been a disaster. And so many people, you have seen them, they get involved in a relationship where they didn't do their homework, they didn't inspect carefully, and 5-10 years down the road, in worst cases with families and kids and lots at stake, everything falls apart because they didn't ask the right question in the dating period. And so here's important questions to observe and ask. Here's how you can inspect the other person. How are they with their family? Are they respectful? What kind of family do they come from? You'll learn a lot about who a person is when you see them around people that they do life with on a day in and day out basis. So you want to know what kind of relationship you're going to be in 5, 10 years down the road? Watch how they handle their relationship with their parents or with their family. How do they respond when they don't get their way? I'm sorry, but I don't get my way, and you get your way most of the time. No, I'm just kidding. But watching how they respond when they don't get their way, you're going to have to deal with that because you don't get your way every time in the relationship. So pay attention to those situations. How do they react when it's stressful? Because you don't live a stress-free life. And whatever happens in a stress-filled situation is going to spill over to you.
How are they with members of the opposite sex? Ben was speaking to the females and just saying, you know, ladies, we don't want someone who's flirting with everyone, but I think the same goes to the guys too. We want someone who has great boundaries with people of the opposite sex, because I don't want somebody who's going to be flirting with somebody else. I want somebody who respects people of the opposite sex, because that's how they're going to treat me, and that's how they're going to act when we're together and when we're dating as well. How often do they talk about themselves, and how do they ask questions and listen to me? I heard a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is like an old school book, you know, whatever. But it really, when you meet somebody, what do they want to talk about more than anything else? Themselves. And so I think it's a great litmus test to be able to meet somebody and talk with them and find out, do they just want to talk about themselves and how much money they have, or what job they have, or how great and how smart they are, how great they are at sports, things like that? Or do they want to ask about me a little bit? And then that's a good question for myself too. How am I doing with that? Am I asking people, how are you today? Or is it all about me and how miserable my life is, or how wonderful it is? How are they in interacting with other people and really caring about the other people that they're talking to and listening to, hopefully?
Another great question to ask is, we're going to skip through some of these because I don't want to run out of time. One of the important questions for me are, what do my parents think of her? Now, some of you come from a difficult home, but many of you have families who love you. And there is nobody that would know better what kind of person you would match up with than your parents. They know you better than you believe that they do. And so when I showed up with Lauren, my parents gave me the look. Buddy, you screw this up, you're out of the family. Okay?
Now, my parents started coming to Cedar Creek to save me from him. But after they got to know him, it was an okay thing.
I show up at her parents' front door, and her dad's like 2 earrings, short guy, and baggy jeans. This isn't good, you know? It was funny.
It was good. It's fine.
And you do number 15.
I mean, the huge one that hopefully isn't, you know, a real surprise to any of you. Do they have an ongoing relationship with God? I tell you what, I dated people who said, yeah, I believe in God. That's great. Sure, whatever. But they really didn't. And I knew that. I knew that they didn't. I knew they could have cared less about things that were so important to me. So don't make excuses for them. No matter what they say, what are they living? What are they acting out? And how are they carrying on with their relationship with God? Is it something that's growing? Is it something that they're pursuing? Is it something that they want to talk about and talk with other people about? That has to be so important for you. Don't budge on that one.
That truly could go in one of the pre-approval things for both boys and girls is, how are you doing in your relationship with God? Because if that's not squared away, I talk to so many couples in my office, and you know what they do? They take the expectations that only God can fulfill, and they place them here. And that will set my wife up to fail every time. If I go into this relationship expecting her to save me from all of my problems and to fix all of my emptiness and my woes, it's going to mess us up. And so if you're doing that, if you're pursuing a relationship to fix something inside of you, to make you happy or to complete you, you're going to mess up yourself. It's going to be miserable.
And I think the other thing is, there are some of us out there who are dating people because we think we can save them. It's a lie. You cannot save them. Okay? You can't. If you're dating someone thinking, if I break up with them, who's ever going to teach them about God and Jesus? Wrong reason to date them. God is bigger than that, and God will put somebody else in their life to do that.
It's very arrogant of you to think that you are the one that could save them.
I have good friends who are in their early 30s, one in particular, who dated a guy for over 9 years. 9 years, thinking every Christmas, every Valentine's Day, every birthday, he's finally going to put a ring on my finger and marry me and give me the children that I want and da-da-da-da-da. But I know he doesn't really care about Jesus. But maybe if I just keep bringing him to church and dragging him here and da-da-da, talking about it and praying for him, maybe that will change him. He never changed. And so she wasted 9 years knowing for a long time that it wasn't great, but maybe it'll get better. No, it wasn't going to. Be honest about that. Be realistic about it, and don't waste time with it.
We're going to wrap up with a few things that might be indicators that you need to break it off, like what Lauren talked about. So jot these down, and then we'll wrap up. This is the best way that you can guard your heart. If the person is not following Jesus, you need to stop. If the person is abusive, verbally, relationally, you need to stop. If you're one of those people that is prone to abusive relationships, you need to get clearance before you date anybody, because you will go back to the same type of person again and again if that's your particular weakness. If they pressure you to participate in sin or distance you from God, you need to cut it off. Stop. And there are 4 C's that we talk about around here on staff that I think apply to you and your relationship. Do you have chemistry with them? Do you find energy in being together? Number 2, do they have character? Are they a person of godly character? Number 3, are they relationally competent? Are they only talking about themselves and what they want to do? Or is there give and take? And number 4, are they demonstrating commitment? I think those are 4 great attributes to hold on to. And then you don't have this in your notes. If we had time, we would talk about it. Something very dangerous that happens is when dating couples begin to spend all of their time together. Oh, I can't do that because my boyfriend can't go. I'm not going to go participate in this group or this event or whatever, and you begin to limit your exposure because of what your relationship you think it requires. At your stage in life, or at any stage really, that is completely unhealthy. For Lauren and I, 80% of our activity is with other people. And so why on earth would you start a trend of secluding yourself from everybody else? That's going to get boring and run out of fumes real fast. Instead, since most of your relational life is with others, you should continually give your life away with others, or spend your time with other people, whether they go along or not. You're going to have plenty of time together, the two of you. And so if you're finding that you're in a relationship where you have withdrawn from your other relationships with other people to a great degree, that's probably unhealthy. And a little yellow flag needs to go up and say, we're headed down a difficult path. All right? The last thing that I want you to write down is a verse, Psalm 37:4. It's on the inside of my wedding ring. I think it's on the inside of hers. The passage says this: you delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And I believe that that promise was true for me. And when I first met Lauren, she was somewhat interested in another guy, and I walked out of that room and I thought, God, I could marry that girl. Okay, not that girl. She's with somebody else, but somebody just like her. And so God, I'm going to trust that if I delight myself in you, you will provide the person that is just right for me. And I'm blown away that I get this as a gift to me. And I'm so thankful for what God has provided. And if you would just wait and trust that God has a gift for you, it'll bring some joy to your life when it shows up. however far down the road it may be. But that begins first by delighting in God above all. And so we're going to pray, and so for some of you, give Lauren a round, say thanks for coming in. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up the night, but I just want to take a minute, and as we're praying, for some of you, if you bow your heads and close your eyes. God, there are some here who just need to be reminded that they can wait, and that's okay. When they delight themselves in you, you will provide for them. So give them hope.